Gotta get some on with me. I know it's my destiny. Oh, you're my best friend. In a world we must defend.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dragon Guide. Welcome back to a brand new video, and I'm back. And this is part 12 of What If Ash Fully Evolved All His Pokemon. And let's start with the video. Since we are late in our timeline than the normal timeline, Misty and Jessie will miss out on the Queen of the Princess Festival in Ohina town, but Jessie will still, like the canon, end up catching Lickitung. But we still will have a battle between Team Rocket and our heroes, especially as both the groups decide to participate in a local Pokemon battling competition. And to everyone's surprise, AJ, Joe, Giselle and even Asunta are here participating in the same tournament. Our heroes meet their old friends and learn that both Giselle and Joe are at 5 badges each, whereas AJ is at 4, and Asunta has just come back from Cinnabar Island with her 7th badge. This makes Ash realize that all the friends he made along the journey are either ahead of him or catching up to him. As the rules of the tournament are announced and the prize for the winner is announced to be a rare piece of rock from the Museum of History in Sinnoh region, as the chief guest for the tournament is announced to be Professor Rowan, the lead Pokemon researcher from the Sinnoh region. This amazes Ash and everyone, especially the youngsters, not knowing that there are multiple other regions for Pokemon and for them to travel to. Now, the rules of the tournament are announced to be that each trainer is only allowed to use one Pokemon per match, and the Pokemon will be selected by the trainers prior to the match happening, and that it is a knockout tournament and you only get one chance at winning. As the first round of matchups is announced to be random trainers Joey vs Bert, Jessie vs Joe, James vs Asunta, Misty vs Giselle, Ash vs AJ, and Brock vs an unknown trainer called Ricky. The first round of battle starts as Jessie battles Joe's Growlithe with her Arbok, and after a very balanced battle in terms of strength, Jessie utilizes Arbok's Bind and then Bite to defeat Growlithe, who is unable to counter with anything due to being stuck in the bind. Jessie is announced as the victor. James then tries to battle Asunta with his Weezing, only to be easily defeated by her Ivysaur, which has amazing mastery of the move Petal Dance. Asunta is announced as the winner. Ash finally gets his rematch with AJ's Sandshrew, which has now evolved into a Sandslash, as Ash decides to use Pidgeotto, who is fired up for his rematch and emerges out as the victor, finishing Sandslash off after a hectic battle with a Steel Wing. As Ash wins and AJ congratulates him on his improvements since the last met. Misty also has a shot at victory in a rematch against Giselle, who uses Cubone, which has now evolved into a Marowak, as Misty seals the victory with Tentacruel, as Giselle finds Misty's improved strength really impressive. Misty is the victor. Brock also manages to defeat Ricky easily with his Rhyhorn, which Brock has increasingly bonded with recently. All this time, Brock is announced as the winner. The round 2 matchups are then announced to be Ash vs Asunta, Jessie vs Brock, and Misty vs the random trainer called Joey. Ash vs Asunta is an amazing battle as both trainers decide to battle with their flying types as a callback to their previous meeting, and they send out Pidgeotto and Fearow respectively, as both the board Pokemon battle it out, clashing Steel Wing with Steel Wing, Aerial Ace with Wing Attack, as just when it looks like Fearow is about to dominate, Pidgeotto in its spirit to win starts to glow, as even though it has been away at Oaks, it has been training with Scyther and Butterfree. Thus, Pidgeotto manages to evolve into Pidgeot and defeats Fearow with his newly evolved strength, giving Ash the victory, as Asunta thanks Ash and congratulates him and Pidgeotto, stating that she will be waiting for Ash at the Pokemon League. Jessie vs Brock also goes ahead, but interestingly, Lickitung is too much for Rhyhorn, as moves like Hammer Arm, Ice Beam are super effective and catch Brock off guard. Misty also manages to easily beat the random trainer with the help of Starmie. This is when Professor Rowan announces himself to also be the part of the next round, as Ash is set to battle Professor Rowan and Misty is set to battle Jessie. The battle between Misty and Jessie is intense as both Tentacruel and Lickitung go back and forth, but Misty's experience using Tentacruel for longer trumps Jessie's with Lickitung, as Misty wins with a very strong Hex to finish off the battle and defeat Lickitung and Jessie. Whereas Ash and Wartortle end up battling an unknown Pokemon that Rowan calls Torterra, as Rowan's Torterra is too much for Ash's Wartortle due to the clear type advantage and to the Pokemon being a big tank with grass type moves. But Ash, after losing the battle, does go to ask Professor Rowan about the Pokemon and learns that the Sinnoh region is where this Pokemon comes from, and the Pokemon is called Torterra. This is when it is announced that Misty will be battling Rowan in the finals, and to everyone's surprise, Misty wins his Tentacruel, as the Aurora Beam on Torterra is super effective when used in combination with the move Hex, as Misty ends up winning the rare rock, and our heroes befriend Rowan, who invites the gang to someday visit Sinnoh and him. Misty decides to use the new rock that she has recently obtained as a prize as a necklace for the future, as our heroes say their goodbyes to Professor Rowan and leave for the next destination. Now, for the events of the episode Perfect Hero, they do not take place in our timeline, and we straight away skip to the K9 Caper episode. Ash and gang, like the canon, bump into Growlithe and Officer Jenny. Ash requests Officer Jenny to let him train Charizard on the course, with the police training Growlithe, thinking that this could improve their bond. And surprisingly, when Charizard is introduced to the training course and Growlithe, on being not taken seriously by Growlithe and Jenny's main Arcanine, decides to for once cooperate with Ash to prove Arcanine and Growlithe that he is the better Pokemon. As the two, Charizard and Ash, with their teamwork, not only managed to complete the course but to set a record time for completion, making Charizard happy, which it hides from Ash. And this is when, like the canon, Team Rocket tricks Growlithe and Arcanine into attacking Ash and gang using Jenny's voice through a speakerphone, and this is when, surprising everyone, Charizard teams up with Pikachu to not only resist the attacks but also, like Pikachu, is able to differentiate between Ash's real voice and Team Rocket's Ash voice, making Ash happy. As then, in a weird moment, Charizard not only teams up with Pikachu but also ends up listening to Ash and calming down Growlithe and Arcanine by defeating them, although Charizard gets annoyed with himself for listening to Ash too much and starts acting disobedient again. But in his mind, the thought of him and Ash being a very strong team pops up again, as our heroes and see of Jenny in the training facility, thanking her and leaving for their next destination. Now, the events of the episode Pokemon Paparazzi will not take place in our timeline, as Ash and gang do not bump into Todd as we are later in the series, and we straight away skip to the breeding center part of the story. Events of the canon follow as Ash and gang manage to unmask Butch and Cassidy's plan for stealing Pokemon through the breeding center, but in our continuity, that happens by Ash and Misty tricking the original Rocket trio into exploding and looting the breeding center and having Officer Jenny accompany them. This allows for Officer Jenny to not only catch Butch and Cassidy but also Team Rocket, the original Team Rocket. Trying to catch Butch and Cassidy, Ash and Misty are engaged in a double battle against Butch and Cassidy's Meowth and Raticate respectively with their Ivysaur and Psyduck, as Misty is finally able to command Psyduck and is finally in tune with him for the first time, as our heroes win, and we are also introduced to James's second Pokemon, Weepinbell, which, like the canon, evolves into a Victory Bell. Now, after saving all the Pokemon from the clutches of Butch and Cassidy, our heroes finally leave for Cinnabar Island. As Ash and gang take a boat to Cinnabar Island, the events of the canon follow as our heroes bump into Gary, who tells Ash that there is no gym at Cinnabar Island, but Ash still insists to go and find the Cinnabar gym, as he knows that Asunta had got the gym badge from there. Now, our heroes, like the canon, solve the riddles to reach the secret gym set up by Blaine. The gym battle is set up to be a 3 vs 3, as unlike the canon, Ash's Wartortle is able to defeat Blaine's Ninetales utilizing moves like Aqua Tail, Bubble Beam continuously, only to be defeated by Rhyhorn later due to it being exhausted from its previous battle. Now, Ash decides to use Ivysaur against Rhyhorn and ends up managing to weaken it using Seed Bomb and Takedown, and finally finishing off Rhyhorn with a Solar Beam, which it took Ivysaur a few attempts to launch successfully, as Ivysaur took some damage from Rhyhorn too. Blaine then sends out Magmar, and Magmar literally one-shots Ivysaur, as then Ash, taking a risk, sends out Charizard, only for Charizard to still disobey Ash, but due to being interested and intrigued by Magmar, fight it still, only to be defeated again, and this time extremely harshly, as Magmar dominates Charizard completely in the battle, especially when it comes to fire type attacks. As after the loss, Blaine asks Ash to stay at the volcano, as the hot springs will heal his Pokemon, especially Charizard, and tells Ash when Charizard is knocked out that Charizard is a really strong Pokemon and would be an exceptional Pokemon if it obeyed Ash's instructions, only for Ash to be more fired up this time, for once and for all have Charizard listen to him. As Ash then goes to sit by a Charizard, trying to heal him by spraying potion over his wounds from the battle, and tells Charizard that he believes in Charizard's strength the most, more than anyone, but states that Ash does not want to be friends and partners with Charizard because of his strength, but because of their friendship and how they for the first time ever had saved and fought for each other when it was still a Charmander. Charizard acts asleep but is listening to all this, but noticing no reaction, Ash is about to give up but says one line before he leaves. He tells Charizard he would have still wanted Charizard the same way if he was a weak Pokemon, and he would never abandon it. These lines start repeating in Charizard's mind as he recalls his experience with Damien, his previous trainer, who had left him because he was a weak Charmander. He had left him to die. He realizes how he has started treating Ash, how Damien had treated him as a Charmander based on Ash's skill and strength, ignoring Ash's love for him. And then what Ash said resonates with Charizard as he recalls how Ash had saved him from the Sparrow, putting his life on the line. How Ash even tried hugging him even when the Sparrow attacked Charmander, as tears sheds out of Charizard's eyes. As something clicks in Charizard's mind that night, and he decides that from that night on he will let Ash guide him. He will trust this trainer with his life. How Ash had trusted his life to him when Charizard had asked to join Ash as a Charmander so that it could protect Ash always. And the next day we see Blaine defeating Team Rocket, but the battle destabilizing the volcano like the cannon. So Blaine asks Magmar to dam the volcano, and Ash requests Charizard to do the same. Not for Ash, but to save the Pokemon that are present around. And to everyone's surprise, Charizard listens and helps in one go, and also outperforms Magmar in damming the volcano. Ash then asks Blaine to offer him a rematch because he helped with the volcanic situation. Blaine agrees, but then introduces a new condition, stating that Ash will only be offered the badge if Ash defeats Blaine's Magmar with his Charizard in a one-on-one battle. And Ash, even though unsure about if Charizard will listen, agrees because he wants the badge badly. Even in Brock and Misty asked him not to agree. Ash sends out Charizard, who looks fired up, as Blaine sends out Magmar. The two Pokemon start the match with a clash of flamethrowers, as to everyone's surprise, Charizard is obeying Ash. Both Pokemon come out of the flamethrower clash as equals. Ash then asks Charizard to use the move Air Slash, but Magmar counters with a Fire Blast, sending Charizard in the lava, only for Ash to call out its name due to being worried, and for it to come out of the lava unscathed and landing a strong seismic toss by lifting Magmar in the sky and throwing it from that height. Magmar takes a good amount of damage. Blaine then calls for a fire punch, which Charizard dodges by flying in the air at high speed on Ash's instructions. And then Ash calls for something surprising. He asks Charizard to catch one of Magmar's punches and take him up in the sky and drop him, followed by a flamethrower from above. Charizard without fail does as asked. This catches Blaine off guard, as Magmar, due to the fall damage combined with the flamethrower damage, is knocked out, winning Ash the Volcano badge. As Blaine praises Ash and Charizard, as Charizard, to everyone's surprise, hugs Ash, as Ash without a second of delay hugs him back and thanks Charizard. Calm Charizard in his mind feels calm after a long time. He gets it now. Ash was right that the strength alone was never enough, but they as a team can be the strongest if they trust each other and help each other. That they together could defeat someone that Charizard alone had lost badly to just a day prior, as this is when, like the canon, Brock advises Ash and gang to go to the Viridian City for the final and 8th gym badge. As like the canon, Ash and gang are trying to catch a ferry off Cinnabar Island as they bump into a water turtle who, unlike the canon, is not asking for help because Misty has caught Jigglypuff already in our continuity. So this time Ash and gang are stopped because Misty wants to catch water turtle for herself, which after a little resistance even Brock and Ash agree to. But as soon as Misty is about to catch the water turtle, a Blastoise pops up to protect Water Turtle. Now, as Team Rocket is watching all this from far, Misty decides to battle Blastoise with Tentacruel but ends up losing, as this is when Team Rocket pop up and try to catch all the Water Turtle and Squirtle and trap Blastoise, leaving him unable to help, as this is when Ash lets out his Water Turtle, who ends up saving the day with Misty's Tentacruel. The two water types Pokemon defeat Team Rocket and their Pokemon and then go on to help Blastoise, as Misty agrees not to catch the Water Turtle. Blastoise and Water Turtle, as a way of thanks, decide to drop off our heroes off Cinnabar Island, as our heroes wave goodbye to them as they leave for Radiant City, only to at the last moment be stopped by the first Water Turtle they encountered, who offers Misty a Water Stone as a thanks and swims away. Now, on their way back to Viridian City, our heroes return to Cerulean City as we learn that the Cerulean gym shows, like the canon, had become less popular. So the Sensational Sisters had to figure out a new act, which they had eventually done without Misty, since we are later than the canon. So Steel did evolve into a dugong to become the new main attraction, and the shows had started to do well. So now Ash and gang had arrived back because Misty had offered the gym space to train Ash and Water Turtle before the next gym, in return for Ash to let Water Turtle perform with Misty in a special show at the request of her sisters. Ash agrees as the show is successful and due to the aesthetic combination of Aqua Tail and Aurora Beam. Only for Team Rocket to then try and steal all the water type Pokemon present at the gym, as they are stopped by Vulpix, Pikachu and Psyduck. Ash then asks Misty to teach Water Turtle Ice Beam with the help of Dugong, as Ash and Misty have multiple battles with only Ice Beam being used as a singular move, as Water Turtle manages to finally pick up the attack, as Ash then out of nowhere decides to rest and have fun with Brock, Misty and all the Pokemon in the gym pool to relax a little after such a long journey, as our heroes relax and leave for Radiant City the next day. As Misty ends up bonding with Togepi even further and leaves Goldeen at the gym, Ash will also swap Scyther and Pidgeot for Butterfree and Nidorina. On their way to Viridian City, our heroes encounter a Clefairy and a UFO, causing for a similar fight like the canon between Jigglypuff and the Clefairy leader, but in our timeline, Misty and Jigglypuff together defeat the Clefairy leader to save our heroes from being kidnapped, as during the battle, Team Rocket appear with a fake UFO of their own, only to be defeated by Butterfree, who has been away for so long. Butterfree in the battle displays its newly learned moves like Bug Buzz and Psychic, which it has learned due to his training with Scyther, Pidgeotto and Kadabra. Ash is surprised and happy to see Butterfree as strong as it has become, as he hugs it after the battle, celebrating their victory with him, saying sorry for not calling him all this time. But Butterfree isn't angry or upset, but happy to see Ash, as it nods in an understanding way. Our heroes then set up a camp to rest, as Ash then lets Butterfree and rest of his Pokemon train, as during one specific battle between Butterfree and Water Turtle, Butterfree pushes Water Turtle to the limits by dodging all his attacks, be it Bubble Beam, Aqua Tail, Ice Beam or Bite. This feeling of not being efficient reminds Water Turtle of his battle against Gary's Blastoise, so much so that the Water Turtle gets frustrated and is unable to land a hit. As Water Turtle then recalls Ash's strategy and gets in his shell and starts throwing Bubble Beam in all directions, disbalancing Butterfree, as then it starts launching Ice Beam in random directions from its shell, as one lands and freezes Butterfree's wing, as Water Turtle then pounces on his opportunity and lands an Aqua Tail, winning him the battle. Ash is impressed and seeing this goes on to hug both his Pokemon, then decides to battle Ivysaur and Nidorina, during which Nidorina displays the new move it has learned from The new moves it has learned with its newfound confidence, or should we call it overconfidence. The new moves being Sludge Bomb she learned from Muck, and Crunch it learned from Aerodactyl. Nidorina seemed to be on the front foot at the start, but Ivysaur eventually takes over and wins the battle with his third attempt at Solar Beam, landing finally, humbling Nidorina for the time being. But it is becoming evident to Ivysaur that Nidorina does not see Ivysaur as someone stronger than itself anymore. We also see a very intense training battle between Pikachu and Charizard, which ends up as a draw, as both Pokemon end up becoming friends by the end of it due to appreciating the other's strength, as our heroes then celebrate with all their Pokemon and rest the night and leave for Radiant City the next morning. Our heroes in Viridian City, like the canon, meet Gary, who also shows off his 10 badges to Ash and goes on to battle the Viridian Gym. As the events of the canon follow, and Gary loses to the mysterious Pokemon, as Giovanni, like the canon, has to go away, leaving the gym to the Rocket Trio. Also, for the purpose of our continuity, we are going to assume that Gary was the first trainer that Giovanni found worthy enough to show Mewtwo to, and also that Giovanni is still called up at the Team Rocket headquarters to deal with something urgent, and this is when Mewtwo escapes from the Team Rocket HQ. So Team Rocket now gets the gym from Giovanni, and Ash ends up challenging Team Rocket for the gym badge. The first battle is between Machamp of Team Rocket as Ash sends out Butterfree. Jessie calls for a Karate Chop as Ash calls for Butterfree to fly around and dodge all the Karate Chops, and just when Machamp slows down, Ash calls for a Psychic, which is super effective, followed by an Air Cutter, which is super effective again, as the battlefield is supposed to be rigged. Ash then asks Butterfree to finish off Machamp with multiple fast-paced air cutters as Jessie and Machamp lose. James steps in next, sending out Kingler, who is able to defeat the tired Butterfree as Ash sends in Ivysaur. Kingler starts off with a bubble, which isn't effective, as Ash calls for Ivysaur to charge the Solar Beam, which fails in its first two attempts as James utilizes the chances to land a Crab Hammer, which does some damage, but the final Solar Beam is strong enough, giving Kingler a lot of damage. And then to defeat Kingler, Ash calls for a Seed Bomb as Ash wins the second battle, as Meowth steps in, sending out Rhydon as Ash switches Nidorina for Ivysaur. Nidorina goes in for a Skull Bash as Rhyhorn goes for a Stomp, both Pokemon taking damage, but Nidorina taking more damage than Rhydon. Rhydon then uses Hammer Arm, which is not that effective against Nidorina, as Nidorina uses Crunch, but then Rhydon uses Drill Run, which is too much for Nidorina to take, as it is defeated, and as Ivysaur comes out to take it by Ash's side and comes in the battle aggressively as it unleashes a perfect Solar Beam in one attempt at Rhydon, which is super effective, and then Rhydon attacks with the Hammer Arm as Ash calls for Ivysaur to use a takedown as both Pokemon clash and are barely left standing, as Ivysaur is the first one to recover and then unleashes a Seed Bomb, which finishes off Rhydon, who is still phased out due to the takedown it had faced and the Solar Beam it had faced just earlier, as Ash wins the battle. Ivysaur is shaking, but it has somehow managed to win due to its determination to protect Nidorina and get revenge for it. Team Rocket, like the canon, then denies to give Ash the badge, but like the canon, due to Togepi, Team Rocket is sent flying and Ash manages to catch the falling Earth Patch and the Viridian Gym is destroyed, as our heroes then head out for Pallet Town with Gary joining them on this journey till they all reach Ash and his hometown. And that's all for part 12 of What If Ash Fully Evolved All His Pokemon, and I really wanted to thank you guys for your constant support and being extremely patient with me this past week, since I had been busy with my real life stuff, with my college and stuff. So I really am thankful for you guys. Keep supporting me, keep liking the videos, keep commenting. Watch out for part 13, which will be coming out soon in the next 2 days. Until then, peace, Dragon Guide.